Houston adds two vets to their weakened wide receiver room, but I got to say, guys, it's not enough.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From A-Sound to your town, today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Welcome to the Morning Drive. As I, John Hickman, your Texans Credential Media member, will be talking Texans with you at 7 a.m. in the morning. The evening drive will be later today. Today's episode will feature just a conversation centered around the new faces in the wide receiver room for Houston and why I feel it's not enough, but we'll discuss that. From H-Town to Carolina, just like staying North Fleet, right? The Houston Texans will travel to Carolina this week to have joint practices with the with the Carolina Panthers, and also their last preseason game. What do you want to see? Stroud's contract discourse. It was a funny last couple of days on Texans Twitter when it came to C.J. Stroud and his contract. And so let's talk about that and just the overall outlook of, maybe what to expect this upcoming year whenever we dive into C.J. Stroud and his contract situation with the Houston Texans. Shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas for making the Locked On Texan podcast your first listen of the day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all of the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this MLB season. Houston signs veterans wide receivers Zay Jones and Sterling Shepard. Jones last season in Arizona, 8 games, 12 catches, 183 yards, 0 TDs. His best season came in 2022. Let me add that he is coming off an Achilles tear. Sterling Shepard last season in Tampa Bay, 13 games, 39 catches, 371 yards, 1 TD. D'Amico Ryan said when it comes to adding depth in our receiver room, it's no secret that we lost a very significant piece in our receiver room in Jaylin Higgins. And let me also add to that part right there. I think for Houston, in the last 3 seasons, they've lost consistently significant pieces. I think we have to keep that in mind. Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and now Jaylin Higgins. So for the Texans, let's talk about the moves for Houston and essentially how much of a mess the wide receiver room is currently. So the reports were the asking price for Kayshon Boutte was too high. Houston didn't want to pull the trigger on that trade. Rashad Bateman in Houston has some buzz, but he's currently dealing with some legal battle currently. The injury happened after Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs were signed, and those were 2 moves that I think would have made a ton of sense play-wise. And in this case, Houston would have been able to keep their draft picks. But if you ask me, and this is really where I want to lead off at. If you ask me, screw those picks, man. Screw them. You think the Rams cared about first-round picks when they wanted to get Myles Garrett or Jalen Ramsey or Matthew Stafford, or even back in the day with Brandon Cooks? Stafford, that resulted in a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl win. Brandon Cooks, that resulted in a Super Bowl appearance. Jalen Ramsey, that resulted in one of the better defenses that year that they traded for him, along with Aaron Donald just being who he is up front. And they won the Super Bowl that year. Myles Garrett, they gave up a first-round pick for Myles Garrett. You think the Rams cared? Do you think the Eagles cared when they traded for A.J. Brown, which that eventually led them to a Super Bowl appearance and winning a Super Bowl in itself? At what point does a first-round pick become less valuable than the proven player who can help win a Super Bowl right now? I think that's a conversation that I think really needs to be had in the Texan space, where for some people, first-round picks matter more than going to get a future stud or a current stud in the NFL. Not future, but a guy that that no matter what the system is, no matter where he plays, he's going to be a playmaker. He's going to be a baller. And so too often I hear the conversation of, I don't want to trade a first-round pick for this player. Why not? Why not? Especially if the first-round pick is resulting in a player that would boost a weakened wide receiver room. Sometimes I think Texan fans um, don't value explosiveness in the wide receiver room. I think sometimes Texan fans view wide receiver for Houston, and I feel like it's just the Houston Texans and the fan base. They view it as the system will help the player. And too often, at the end of the year, we have the same conversations. It's Nico Collins and insert X receiver who doesn't do enough, right? And no disrespect to whoever it may be, but was it Nico and Robert Woods? That wasn't enough. It was Nico and Xavier Hutchinson. That wasn't enough. We've seen the same song all the time. So those are my thoughts just on the lack of aggressiveness from the Houston Texans. Now, I will add this. I don't think that they're done, but let's dive into who they brought in Zay Jones and Shepard. There's no connection between either receiver and the offensive play calling per se. I will like to add that for Jones, he spent some time with Doug Peterson in Jacksonville and that West Coast offense, which was also his best season. But will it translate 4 years later? Houston doesn't need somebody that they can wait on. They need a guy right now. And again, do we believe the Texans can make it to an AFC Championship game? Absolutely. Do we believe the Texans can make it to a Super Bowl? With the right pieces, they can. But does Houston have the right pieces? Like, that's the conversation. And it's been 4 years since we've seen the best version of Zay Jones. And when I hear D'Amico say it's no secret that we've lost a very significant piece in our receiver room, I'm sorry, but it feels like, and I'm in a minority when I say this here, but finding a way to add another significant piece should be Houston's next move, the best move. And these moves that Houston brought, the Zay Jones and Sterling Shepard, right? They don't move the needle. They don't, right? But I look at Denver, added Waddle, moves the needle. Buffalo added DJ Moore, that moves the needle. The Patriots and AJ Brown, Romeo Dobbs. And if you've been following the show, I have felt as if Houston needed to make one of those moves before the injury of Jaden Higgins. So they definitely need it now, right? I do want to say this. I think Stroud, and this is where I think the discourse needs to kind of circle back to. I think Stroud might be better equipped to handle a lesser talented receiver room this year compared to last. I think that's really encouraging words that most Texas fans should really be jumping for joy to hear. That said, he shouldn't have to. And at the end of every year, he's had to. He's had to. So these moves don't move me. And I know there's a lot of excitement surrounding young players like Jaylin Noel, who practiced Saturday, right? That's good news. But a part of me feels as if Sterling Shepard is his backup plan, right? As he's dealing with that hamstring. And also, they're excited about Lewis Bond. But again, two major concerns. Noel's hamstring injury is a factor. And the fact that Bond, despite all of the great practice moments he's had, and it's been a lot, none of that has translated to anything remotely close to holding up in a live game. Like, I'm still waiting on a Victor Cruz moment or a Jacoby Myers preseason moment where coming out of preseason, you knew definitively that wide receiver can make plays on Sundays. We haven't had it yet. And if history serves me right, just remember history, I've seen what it looks like when Stroud doesn't have a full wide receiver room when we get to late November, December, and January football, heading into the postseason, which is where it typically breaks down. I want you guys to value your quarterback enough to say, hey, enough is enough. Go get him real reinforcements. They did it for Josh Allen. They did it for Drake May, who's coming off MVP season. They did it for Bo Nix. They're doing it for young quarterbacks. Do it for yours. Let's talk about what do you want to see this upcoming week. From Macestown to Carolina, just like Stan Norfleet. More Texas talk on today's pod. All right, Texan fans, listen, perfect time to talk to you guys about Gusto. Running a small business means wearing a lot of hats. Payroll, HR, and benefits can quickly become some of the most time consuming tasks on the list. Gusto helps simplify those responsibilities with one platform designed to make managing a team easier. Gusto is an online payroll and benefit software built for small businesses. It's all in one, remote friendly, who doesn't love that, and incredibly easy to use. So you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. You can be at home, you can be on the islands, you can be at your other job. Gusto helps with that, right? From automatic payroll, tax fillings, and simple direct deposits to health benefits, 401ks, and built in onboarding tools. Gusto brings the day to day HR tasks together in one place. There are so many certified HR experts available to help with those tougher HR situations. I think payroll and HR are probably two of the things. Of those things that seem simple until you actually have employees. Suddenly, you're dealing with direct deposits, tax fillings, benefits onboardings, and all of those little details that make a successful business successful. Having Gusto handle those things in one place could take a huge administrative burden off a small business owner. So you get an opportunity to get back to focusing on your business, which Gusto completely understands. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/locked on NFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. There you go. They help you out both ways. That's 3 months free payroll at gusto.com/locked on NFL. One more time for you guys out there. Write it down. Gusto.com/locked on NFL. Back talking Texans with you guys. I hope you guys understand where I come from. Where I'm coming from on this situation. Where like I can only go based on what I've seen. Right? Everybody's been in a relationship, and if you've had a bad relationship, at some point you break up, but you think about spinning the block, right? But then you start to think to yourself, okay, we're back together. Our first date was all right. We had a good time. We laughed. The memories were great. But then you start going back around that person a little bit more, and you realize, hey man, I remember some of the same tendencies you did last year. You're doing them again. I remember how you didn't listen to what I wanted for Christmas in late December, and now you're displaying some of those same bad tendencies, and that can give you relationship PTSD. I'm not the love doctor, but what I am saying is, for the Texans, your quarterback may have not relationship PTSD, but wide receiver PTSD, where it's like, man, I lost another one, and I don't have anybody else that can help me in this cold winter game on 3rd and 7, and we got to make a play. All right, let's talk about what's going on currently. The Houston Texans recently worked out defensive and secondary help, including all pro special teams ace George Odom, safety Hudson Clark, and cornerback Trey Hawkins the third. This is all according to Aaron Wilson. As the team addresses training camp and preseason injuries, they also recently evaluated and signed linebacker Caleb Johnson following a successful workout. Houston also signed running back Deuce Vaughn. Vaughn was not good in Dallas, but we also have to keep in mind that unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, Jawar Jordan is still dealing with a hip flexor. And the good moments from Noah Whittington, this is also a very unfortunate situation because it's not all on Whittington, but the good moments we've seen from Noah in practice hasn't produced anything worth holding on to in a live game. We have to put value in what we see in live games, Texas fans. We have to, right? So for Houston, I think they want to get a really good look at who can be their RB3. option this year. But keep in mind, Vaughn hasn't played since 2024. I believe he was on the Denver Broncos practice squad for 25, but no live game reps. And so, again, the value here in this conversation, because where does the value lies in live game reps? Noah Whittington has been great in training camp practice. I mean, he's had some good runs for Houston. Um, but unfortunately, I think he's been a victim of not having the greatest of offensive lines out there in front of him to block. And we saw that on Thursday, too many moments where it felt like, oh my gosh, Whittington was hitting the backfield again. That's not encouraging. But also, I think there may be a conversation to be had about whether or not his vision is helping with that as well. Now, what do I want to see this week from the Houston Texans? They have one more training camp practice at home Monday. So that's happening a little bit later Monday morning. Uh, then they head out to Carolina. I want to see Houston's offensive line and offense practice well against those guys. Those guys, right? Like with the Raiders, it was maybe that guy, Max Crosby. Um, and I do like some of the other defensive pieces that they have, but they're not those guys. They're not Derrick Brown. As we talked about the Texans being extremely successful in the run game last week versus the Raiders, that was a talking point in the joint practice. We also saw it with the first team offense where Woody Marks goes out there on 4 runs, 37 carries, 9.3 yards per carry, including the 20-yarder. And if you go back and look at those clips online or YouTube, wherever you want to find it, you look at how much the Texans offensive line was blowing guys off the line. It kind of like, yeah, I see why they were dominating in camp, because there's no interior pressure to be had from a Raiders defensive lineman. Excuse me. As to where for the Panthers, they got Derrick Brown, who is one of the more elite run stuffers in the NFL. Jaycee Horn at cornerback, Devin Lloyd at linebacker, Jalen Phillips at outside linebacker, Princely Omen Mielin, another outside linebacker, young player. The kid is 6'4". This guy is a young player, drafted last year, and they have a big expectation for him this upcoming year. So I want to see the Houston Texans get it done against those guys. Another thing that I think is extremely important for all of us to see is, how these depth pieces going to shape out, right? I think that especially when we look at the wide receiver unit for the Houston Texans, they're going to get a really good challenge this upcoming week. And I say that because, obviously we highlight the Panthers' star cornerback, which is one of my favorite cornerbacks in the NFL, Jaycee Horn. JC gets slept on a lot when it comes to some of these cornerback discussions. And I think a lot of that may be due to you may not watch him a lot around the league. Obviously, he's missed some time. Excuse me, he's missed some time in the NFL, but JC is really one of those dudes, man. Hell of a cornerback, and so for Xavier Hutchinson, who is expected to have an even bigger role now that Higgins is out. Like, he already was expected to have a big role with Higgins. Now the expectation is a lot higher. Now for Jaylin Noel, and you hope that he continues to practice, the expectation is a lot higher. The expectation for Jared Wayne is a lot higher. The expectation for Joshua Caley to maybe perform and be able to stick around on the practice squad if Houston needs to call him up, or Zay Jones, right? It's Sterling Shepard. The expectation for these guys are extremely high. So I think that for Houston this week, they're going to be in a situation where they can put it all together. Or it could look like they need more reinforcements. You got Jaycee Horn, you got Mike Jackson at cornerback. You also have Nick Scott. They got a very solid secondary, a really good secondary, honestly, one of the more underrated secondaries in the league. So the Texans depth guys, I don't care what I see out of Nico Collins, simply because for Nico, I know that once we get to Sundays and he's healthy, he's going to turn it on. He's going to be a top 7 to 11 receiver in the NFL, depending on how a quarterback is looking out for their receiver any given Sunday. But we know that he's among the elites of the elites in terms of the wide receiver discussion. The rest of those guys need to have good camp this week, but more so a good joint practice, because we may not see Xavier Hutchinson this week in preseason. I'm sure we won't, right? We're not going to see some of these guys. Jared Wayne, do I think we're going to see Jared Wayne? I don't think we're going to see him. So those guys should look at the joint practice as a way to stand out. I think the Texans coaching staff need to see that. Ben McDaniels, Nick Caley, D'Amico Ryans, and ultimately Nick Caserio, to really get a good evaluation of what their wide receiver unit could look like ahead of the regular season, as they will be practicing against a very good secondary. And here's the thing, above all, you want everybody to leave out of that practice healthy. And I should have led with that. You want everybody to be healthy. But after that, you want to see what this wide receiver room can do, and also what this offensive line can do as well, going up against those guys. The offense all together. So wide receiver depth, the offensive line, RB3, I think is a good good thing to look out for. Don't think we're going to see Jawar Jordan. Could be wrong. Wish we could. Did he do enough before getting to preseason games to warrant keeping him around, especially being hobbled with a hip flexor? We hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. Does Noah Whittington stand out? Does Deuce Vaughn offer anything? Or, is there maybe another option to look out for the Houston Texans once teams get to making cuts? Here's another thing. Do they kind of look and see what Carolina has at the running back spot? Also, we need to see what their CB4 spot looks like. Colin Wright dealing with an injury. I think Jalen Smith has done what he needs to do to lock up that CB3 role. So for Houston, CB4, what does that competition look like after this week? Now, I want to talk about a little bit about Stroud's contract discourse and why it may have gotten a little out of control, and also why good fun is just good fun if you use your common sense. And listen, guys, perfect opportunity to pause with Texans talk. And let's talk about life. Life gets busy, and figuring out what's for dinner every night can quickly become another thing on the to-do list. Home Chef takes the stress out of mealtime by delivering fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes right to your front door. Whether you're looking to get, healthier in terms of what you're eating, save money on takeout, or simply spend less time grocery shopping and meal planning, Home Chef makes cooking at home simple, convenient, and enjoyable. Home Chef offers more than 30 meal options every week, including calorie conscious and GLP-1 friendly meals. And there's something for every schedule and lifestyle. So people really love it. Home Chef is rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, most importantly, taste and recipe ease. And listen, don't send me no recipes that don't taste good. Home Chef ain't gonna do that. They're gonna make sure that what they send you tastes good. Honestly, like we've all had one of those weeks where everything was just kind of back to back, meetings, errands, just nonstop. Normally, that's when I end up grabbing takeout or skipping a meal altogether. And at the end of the night, when I go to sleep, I'm usually never satisfied. But when I get Home Chef, when I have my Home Chef in my fridge, complete game changer for me and my family. I didn't have to think about what to cook or make a grocery run. I just followed the recipe card, and in about 30 minutes, I had a real balanced dinner that actually felt like I put the love and effort into it, even though it was super simple. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off and free shipping for your first box, plus free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/locked on. That's homechef.com NFL, for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/locked on NFL must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. Texas fans and football fans alike, it's very important that I let you know that I understand you're preparing for your fantasy draft in about a week, right? Or maybe right before the regular season starts. Now on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 YouTube channel on the NFL and on audio. Check out Locked On Fantasy Football with Fabs and Marcus for your second listen of the day. And also remember, Texas fans, later today I will be dropping an interview with Evan Brown, who I think you guys will like that. Tuesday, we'll also have a schedule to include for, excuse me, interviews. So every day this week in the afternoon drive, Locked On Texan podcast, I will be dropping an interview or talking about a player or position that we need to see improve or highlight for the Houston Texans. Now, closing out today's podcast, it was a weird weekend. It was a weird weekend. Jeremy Branham, ESPN Radio, who he now says he's in the opinion business, went viral, super viral, actually. Viral like I don't think we've seen before. I know we have, but um, he tweeted out. So Will Kunkel tweeted that C.J. Stroud and the Texans are not close on a new deal, per Adam Schefter. Jeremy tweeted in response to that, Texans want him at 50 to 55 million. Stroud wants 70 million, and that caused an uproar. I'm talking about 2.7 million views, retweets. My man Jonathan Alexander, the Houston Chronicle, chimed in as well. And for Jeremy Branham, I think how he came to that number was, and I think this is kind of interesting. What percent of the cap do you think Mulligala is starting the negotiation at for Stroud? Probably 24%, and Budge a bit off. It may be Budge a bit off of that, right? They wouldn't accept less than 20%. Otherwise, a deal would have been done. And then what he did was use other quarterbacks as examples. So let's just say the bottom of the range is 20% and the top of that range is 24%, with a cap of 300.2 million dollars in cap. That puts us at a range of 60 to 72 million dollars APR. Interesting, but Stroud's contract discourse, like I said, it caused a major uproar. I think we need to put that to bed for a while, personally. Excuse me. I think that once we get to talking about CJ Stroud, just had a internet error. Once we get to talking about that contract, it feels as though we're forgetting one thing, and that is the Texans, who holds all of the cards right now. They have a checklist of what they're looking for, and I think the first half of that checklist has already been marked out. He's done what he needed to do in the offseason. He's put in the work to refine his body. Um, he's honed in on his craft, and more so, he's honed in on the offensive scheme and the communication between Stroud and Caley and Jerry Slapinski are all on one page. I think that at this point, if that's all what they were looking for, the contract would have gotten signed by now. I think the second half of that is, again, how will this translate to live action football? We got an opportunity to see a little bit of that this past weekend, this past Thursday against the Raiders, where on that first drive, Stroud from head to toe, I thought looked different than how you finished the year. 70 million is not going to get done. That's not going to happen. I would be shocked. I would be surprised if CJ Stroud get 70 million. Not because he doesn't deserve it, but I just don't see him getting that, considering, you know, I think numbers do come into the equation when figuring out a deal for a quarterback. And for Stroud, he has 1 year of 4,000 passing yards, but he's never hit 30 touchdowns on a year, right? So I think that matters. But ultimately for Houston, there's a sense of, to me, in my opinion, there's a sense of if he works it out, if everything pans out, they're not going to have a problem paying him, right? And I've said this before. I mentioned how the Cardinals rushed it a little bit with Kyler Murray, and we've seen teams just kind of rush it with their quarterback situation in terms of paying them too early, and it doesn't pan out over time, and it ends up hurting the franchise in the long run. And some people was like, why would you compare Stroud to Kyler Murray? And I'm like, well, you guys do remember when Kyler Murray first came into the league, he also had some very good moments. Nothing like CJ Stroud in his rookie year, but if I remember correctly, Kyler Murray was also the rookie of the year as a quarterback for Arizona. Once Stroud does what he needs to do for this year, I think the Texans are going to pay him. I think that they're going to gladly pay him. Now, where it becomes, I guess, a little tricky for me and somewhat of a concern is for Stroud, how long does he continue to play until he feels disrespected that, hey, guys, there are so many things to factor in. For one, your former quarterback who's getting booed in Cleveland left y'all. It's been rough for Deshaun. The football guys and karma have come together on Deshaun, right? It's also Cleveland, but I also think a part of why the Cleveland Brown fans are not embracing him, whether it's personal, as he says, because of maybe his past and legal issues, but also he hasn't played football in a couple of years now. And the last time we saw Deshaun, he wasn't good. Cleveland will boo a bad quarterback. If you're great, they'll boo you. They loved Baker Mayfield when he first got there and took him to the playoffs, but everything after that, they booed him. Deshaun has been one of the worst quarterbacks we've laid our eyes on in the last couple of years. Whenever we do see him play football, and so for Stroud, I wonder, and not only just for Stroud, let me not put it all on the quarterback, but for his team, Malagella, who was here for that. My quarterback brought y'all, helped bring y'all out of darkness. Got to pay for that. Got to pay for that. I think after Stroud's rookie year, was he not a top 10 among jersey sales or something along those lines? Got to pay for that. Stroud is a big reason why the Texans have been, viewed as a franchise that you want to watch. Now, so is Jadeveon Clowney, so is Derek Stingley, so is Nico Collins, so is Jalen Petrie, so is Kamari Lassiter, so is Caden Bullock, Daniil Hunter, right? And now Caden McDonald. The defense is he's out here. This team is a defensive team, but that first year coming out of purgatory of consistent 4 wins in a row, Stroud, your rookie of the year, had a lot to do with that. Nico didn't see 1,000 until Stroud got to Houston. So it's a discourse that I think is never ending, but at some point we need to pause it and let's wait till the football plays itself out. Thank you for watching this morning's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter, John_Hickman12, and on Instagram, Maximum Sports Guy with 2 Y's at the end. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.